SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Own the John Deere compact tractor you've always wanted. Now with 0% financing on all 1 through 4 series models at Ag Up Equipment. Visit agup.com. Offer ends April 30th, 2026. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
Good morning to you and happy Thursday on SuperTalk Mississippi. If you're just getting out of bed this morning, brace yourself. Because when you get ready to leave the warmth of your home, your bed, your pets, your family, and you walk outside this morning, I'm telling you, it's going to feel like you're jumping from a sauna into a cold plunge pool. It is so brisk out there this morning. Did you make it to work okay without any limbs in your way this morning, Lance?
Man, I tell you, it was a wet one yesterday and windy. I sat out there and just kind of enjoyed the afternoon, and then all of a sudden this huge gust of pollen hit, and you were like, here it comes. And the temp dropped. And as the morning kind of crept along, as you said, I walked out this morning and went, ooh, I better go back and get a coat because it was a little cool.
Very chilly outside. You know, Hattiesburg
Nice,
overnight, tornado warnings there. Southern Miss, of course, the campus, they were told to get into lockdown. Just be prepared. Fortunately, we didn't have anything like that here. Of course, up north, our friends in the Midwest, Indiana, got hit pretty hard with tornadoes overnight. And temperatures this morning in Mississippi have dropped substantially. Yesterday morning, if you were up early, you know it was humid and sticky and warm. This morning we're seeing temperatures in Jackson right now hovering around 47, in Hattiesburg around 53, a little bit warmer in Gulfport around 60, but still unusually cool for this time of the year. And if we head north to our friends in Starkville, right now they're in the mid 40s as well. So we're bracing ourselves for some cooler temperatures. That cold front moved through and left a lot of mess out there. I had to dodge a lot of limbs coming through. I took part of the Natchez Trace this morning to come into SuperTalk, and there are limbs and debris everywhere. So please, folks, give yourself a little bit of extra time and be careful of the roads because it's going to take a little while. Although we didn't have any major storms make it through our state, we got a lot of stuff down, a lot of tree limbs. You mentioned the pollen, Lance. There's a lot of the I don't know what you call it, but from the pine trees, all of those little
nodules,
fuzzy-looking things. They're all over the parking lot here, the station, and at my home and everywhere. We were hoping the storm would knock it down, but then we always forget about the mess it's going to leave behind.
It does. And you know, you always know when there's been a good gully washer because I can pull into the parking lot and normally I will not see our cats. And after a good rain, they're always out there. And it's like they're waiting for something, for somebody. I'm not quite sure, but I saw Yeller this morning and a couple of the newbies. So, yeah, you always know when you get a really good rainstorm on this side of town. And the other thing is, I mean, I can assure you, if you're going to be in those low spots, some of the hollers, and especially like Lake Harbor where you have it's really roller coastery, there's still a lot of water set in those spots. So be careful. Don't hydroplane heading to work. It's really dark. And, but it's cool. It's enjoyable. But, you know, it was funny you just mentioned the temperatures because 2 days ago they were saying it was abnormally warm for this time of year. Now it's abnormally cool. So
Welcome to Mississippi.
Yeah, it's like the porridge and the Three Little Bears.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because when I was in television news, we always used to joke about our friends, the meteorologists, because who else has a job that they can be, well, maybe some baseball players, but who else can have a job and be less than 50% right most of the time and still keep their job? But it's so unpredictable. I mean, when you think about what they're forecasting, they are predictions. We don't know. And in the South, it can be so volatile. And then you look up as we head up north and you go into those tornado alley paths that make their way through. It can be so volatile, and it happens so fast on you, right? I mean, one minute you're thinking it's fine and you're sitting out on your back porch and Lance having his cocktail, enjoying his afternoon after working all day, and then the next thing you know, the winds are about to sweep him away.
It was, and we'll see this storm as it blows through East Mississippi. It'll go into Alabama and kind of run its course. Should be pretty nice though behind it, but you never know. There could be some lingering things that you got to worry about with the storms. But yeah, it should be a pretty Friday, which will be a Friday the 13th. So get ready for the Friday the 13th.
Friday 18th.
Yeah, Friday 13th.
Friday the 13th. Yeah, Friday the 13th. That's a crazy day. Are you superstitious at all?
Well, I was a baseball player, so that kind of goes with the territory.
Yeah.
So yeah, very superstitious with certain things, and then others not really. It's just the things you hold on to, maybe that you think. I've always been curious about superstition, why you have them. But yeah, I definitely have a few of them that are a little quirky.
You played ball, when you were on a winning streak, what was the weirdest superstitious thing that you did?
You don't change anything. I mean, you just don't change anything you're doing.
Did you grow a beard, or did you cut your hair short?
You wouldn't change anything. Whenever you're winning and playing well, you don't want to do anything that's going to maybe derail that. And confidence is so fleeting at times, especially in baseball, where it's a sport, especially as a hitter. If you hit 275, 300, that means you're successful right at 30% of the time. So you fail a lot. And in pitching, it's the same thing. You throw 100, 120 pitches. Not all of them are strikes. So, you got to have a short memory. But at the same time, when you feel those trends and the things that kind of click, you want to hold on to them.
Bull Durham was one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yeah. I quoted it yesterday to Will East.
I just love that movie, and the superstitions and the nasty shower shoes. And
well, my favorite line in it is kind of radical in a kind of tubular way. And it's like such an 80s throwback quote that Nuke LaLoosh, as he's getting, he's talking to Crash Davis, and he kind of comes in all like burnt out from the night. It's kind of radical in a kind of tubular way.
He's so great in that
he's
movie.
Amazing.
He was so young at the time. Yeah. He and Susan Sarandon ended up in a long-term relationship after meeting on that movie. Yeah. But Ballpark Annie, I mean, I think about that all the time because I was a huge baseball fan, still am. But minor leagues were where I was in local markets most of the time, and I just loved watching these guys come up. I was in Huntsville, Alabama when Jose Canseco, Walt Weiss, Mark McGwire,
Blind Weiss,
they were all coming up, and they actually played in Huntsville for a very short period of time and then immediately got pushed up to the Oakland A's. And of course, we know the history of what happened with them when they were there. They were a fantastic ball club, but I'll never forget that. And I can remember there was a club called the Velvet Underground in Huntsville, and that's where the guys would hang out. And so we would go, and there was also a pool hall that they would hang out at, and we were just friends, we would just hang out, and we were young girls at the time, in our 20s or so, and didn't realize the power of those guys. I mean, they were just minor league players to us, and then the next thing you know, they are superstars, major superstars. And the Mark McGwire thing always amazed me because these guys, when they left Huntsville, weren't big like they ended up when they ended up in the major leagues, right?
Oh man!
And when we went through that whole debacle of steroid use and the testimonies on Capitol Hill, just the players who would not acknowledge that they did it, and it was obvious that they were doing steroids. Everybody did at the time. And then Jose Canseco, he blew up his life and his world by being honest about it. He came forward and said, and he became ostracized, went bankrupt, and to this day still has a lot of problems. And it's really sad to see him. He had a brother. He has a brother named Ozzie Canseco, and Ozzie did very well too. Never had the status of Jose, but they were. Let me tell you something, ladies. If you're listening this morning,
brothers. I love
they were sexy boys. Let me tell you, they were good looking. They had that accent. They were smart to a degree. They were incredible players, incredible athletes, and but just to watch their rise to fame and how fame can change people, not always for the better.
Well, I had the poster of Bo Jackson, obviously. That was my favorite athlete, but also had the Bash brothers, Canseco and McGwire, when they were with the A's.
Yeah.
And not as big, as they were now when McGwire finally got to St. Louis. I did get a chance to see he and Sammy Sosa in Chicago during the home run battle.
Oh, wow.
And what an absolute treat that was. But Sammy Sosa, what an underrated kind of guy. I mean, he wasn't as tall, and you had the Puerto Rican accent and all that.
Oh yeah.
But he was huge. I mean, it looked like two doors, that were side by side. He was so wide, And, as a guy that had just played 4 years of college ball, seeing those men, and I worked out all the time, I was in great shape, but seeing those dudes that big, you're like, man.
Made you feel like you were pretty tiny, didn't it?
I'm 6'4", and that they were making me look small. And but at 225 and 6'4", I felt little around some of those guys, and it was kind of eye-opening, yeah.
If you haven't ever been on the field with a player, whether it's baseball, particularly football, basketball, you don't realize how big these players are because they're all big. So proportionately, they all look about the same, right?
But from the stands, it does, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get down there and you realize, my gosh, these players are huge and powerful. And sometimes the size of their hands, the basketball players, these guys are ginormous.
We
Their
had to
feet.
run with the basketball team, and that was never a good thing. I don't have like the longest giraffe legs. I wasn't gifted with being a long distance runner. So we would have to go out to Ole Miss's baseball, the golf. The golf course. The golf course. And we would start there, and you'd run 18 holes, sprint from the tee box to the green. And those basketball dudes would just be cruising through it, not even breaking a sweat. And we're just absolutely dying, So, yeah, they were amazing athletes, the basketball guys.
Yeah, I met Magic Johnson one time at a spa, actually, in Florida. He walked in kind of the retreat area, and I couldn't help but gawk at him, and it was just not because of his star status, but because of the man's size. He was such a big guy, and so these are our gladiators. We'll be back with more on Super Talk right after this.
Stomping on a dream, but I don't let it get me down. 'Cause this fine old world, it keeps spinning around.
From the Venable Glass Traffic Center.
Good morning, everybody. Time to wake up.
Time to shine!
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Mississippi. I'm Linda Allen, filling in for Richard Cross this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank. More than just a place to manage your money, they're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. They're dedicated to the customers, committed to your success, and always there when you need them. Community Bank, rooted in the community, a member of FDIC. So we were talking about sports this morning. We got some sports birthdays we can share this morning. Do you remember Eddie Sutton?
Eddie Sutton.
Basketball Hall of Fame.
Okay, I was going to say I should know that one, but it's not ringing a bell.
He's a coach. Was a coach, and he was the first in history to have 4 schools make it to the NCAA tournament. Wow. So he was a coach for Creighton, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Oklahoma State. So that was some time ago. If you're a race car fan, John Andretti, the famous Andretti family, he's celebrating a birthday today. Johnny Rutherford, also with that IndyCar family, celebrating a birthday today. He's 76 years old. Darryl Strawberry, I know you know this one, right?
Oh yeah, man, that's one of my favorites of all time. He was he played here in Jackson.
Oh, did he really? Yeah. I didn't realize that.
Mookie and Strawberry, Craig Jeffries, and all of those came through. Dwight Gooden was here for a minute, and it was amazing to be a kid here during the golden era of the New York Mets. Because the AA farm team, everybody came through it.
Yeah.
And I had broken bats and all kinds of stuff that you'd get out of a garbage can that Darryl had broken, and nobody knew how good these guys were going to be, but they were your favorites because that's what you got to see. And then all of a sudden they were stars.
Oh, yeah. And, he had a very unfortunate and interesting journey in his life. That's because right. He got into drugs so badly.
Gooden didn't, he didn't shy away either. That era was a crazy era in all sports, but baseball, it seemed to be magnified more.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. Maybe because it was America's pastime, and it was, that's the thing that was front and center to most. So most all of the scandals, whether it be drugs or steroids or anything, seemed to hit baseball first.
Well, it's interesting when you look at sports, there's really a cycle, it seems like, of what becomes popular at what time in a decade. I mean, if you look back at it, you think about the Chicago Bulls, the LA Lakers, and Showtime. So basketball at one time was like what everybody was focused on. Then NASCAR got really huge for a period of time, right? It's still big, but not like it was.
Yeah, well, you had Dale and Dale Jr., too. I think that was a really interesting time for NASCAR. Scary Gary O'Kane, one of our amazing employees here with SuperTalk that does so many things for us, and one of my absolute favorite people on the planet. Because if you want to talk NASCAR and racing, Gary's got it, man. And they have had some good times over at Talladega. And we were talking yesterday just about how much junk off the track that they would have, like fenders and hoods and stuff from going and all the souvenirs. But yeah, Gary, we need to do a NASCAR segment one day just to bring
have
it back.
him come in.
Because you just set him up and he can do it, man. He knows all of it.
Well, I grew up in Indianapolis, and I went to the Indy 500 selling programs and things. So I grew up with Indy racing. And then when I went to college in the South, I was in Florida, and I worked at a station in Daytona Beach while I was going to school. And I knew nothing about NASCAR. So when I went to my first NASCAR race in Daytona, I was blown away because it was so different. And I'll tell you a quick story. There was a place called Valmonte, which was a steakhouse right across the street from the Daytona 500. And I was very, very young, a cub reporter, and the old news director took me in for a luncheon that they were having with the NASCAR drivers. And it was an opportunity just to sit down, have lunch, get some interviews with them on tape, and then take it back to the station. And so I'm sitting there, this young girl, I'm 18 years old, straight out of high school, first year of college, and I'm at this table with all these NASCAR drivers, and this gigantic steak is on my plate, and I can't eat it all. And this driver sitting across from me says, "Hey, little lady, you going to eat that piece of meat?" And I was like, "No, sir." And he goes, "I'm going to eat it if you don't mind." And he reaches over the table with a big fork and stabs that steak, carries it across the table, and drops it on his plate. Do you know who that was? I had no idea at the time the power of this man and who he was. It was Dale Earnhardt.
Really?
Sitting next to Richard Perry. And so, Petty, I didn't know these guys. I had no clue. And it took me years to really understand the power that, the king of NASCAR and what was going on. But I'll never forget that. And, I was also at the track the day he died. And
really
left the race. Didn't even see it. Was at a Crystal Burger shop. You heard of Crystals, right?
I've eaten a bazillion of them, yeah.
And someone said, "Oh my God, he's dead." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" And they started talking. And of course, the wreck happened, and very unfortunate. Did change helmets and things that happened with NASCAR. But back to the thing. Sports continue to have a cycle. Like you said, baseball was huge for a period of time. The Oakland A's. And do you remember Minnesota when the wives were wearing the mink coats and had the cowbells and just crazy times in sports? But we love sports because it gives us a break from real life, right?
Sure.
Real life is hard.
It is, and most people played something, and that's what you learn in a state like Mississippi. And on a Friday night, when you have football season percolating, and everybody's from a community, everybody has something vested there. Either it's their children, their church, or what. But a lot of times, most of those lessons you learned were on a field somewhere with your friends when you were 9 or 10, and you were battling it out to see who would be the best. And so those lessons stay with you forever, and it builds community. And I get reminded of that, how small, no matter what state you live in, it becomes on football Friday night in the South, because everybody, you're in a situation where it happens every Friday night. It's so organized. It's so amazing to watch and to be a part of because of that sportsmanship. And every now and again, you get a bunch of yahoos that do something stupid. And but 99.9% of it is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's a game, and people go play it. Somebody wins, somebody loses, and then you got to go home. And it's a lesson that we have to learn and keep with us every day, because that's such is life, right? And the song we just played with Frank Sinatra, that's life, man.
It is. And in life, not everybody gets a blue ribbon, right?
Well, you shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to try hard for those.
You don't get a ribbon for doing it, for doing nothing.
My theory, I mean, everybody knows me, and it comes to I'm not big on run rules and all that stuff. You go beat the opponent in front of you as bad as you can beat them, and next time you play them, they're probably going to try to do the same to you. You shake hands afterwards, smile, and maybe trade a shirt or something, and look forward to the next battle.
Yeah, well, we hope, right?
The way it should be.
Some other birthdays today that are notable. George Jackson, you may not remember him, but One Bad Apple. He's from Indianola. I don't know if you knew that. He was born in 1945. Rhythm and blues. He was a great musician. Marlon Jackson of the Jackson 5 celebrating a birthday today. Also Liza Minnelli. Actor Courtney B. Vance, an incredible actor.
Definitely.
65 today. Do you remember, you may not recognize the name, but if you ever watched Homeland, Jake Weber is celebrating a birthday. He was the character that was the radio conservative talk show host, very much like a Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
Titus Welliver, I love him. He's 64 today, an actor. Mitt Romney, 78 years old today.
Bad actor. He's a really bad actor.
No comment on this from the Peanut Gallery. James Taylor. Oh my gosh, what beautiful music he's created for the world.
Well, in pretty much every condo in about 2.5 months will have it playing on the beach.
That's right, right? I mean, that is true. Also celebrating a birthday today, astronaut Wally Schirra. He was born in 1923, and the NASA astronaut, we lost him in 2007. But what an incredible journey for him. You talk about an all-star gladiator. He was on the Mercury 8, the Gemini 6, Apollo 7, one of our original heroes. This one I love. William Billy Thomas was born in 1931. That name, folks, probably will not ring a bell with any of you, but I know when I tell you what he played in a show, you'll know who he is. He was Buckwheat.
Yeah.
Buckwheat.
The nice hair.
Yeah. Musician Al Jarreau celebrating a birthday today as well. So we got some great birthdays.
We mentioned Darryl Strawberry as a New York Met, but it's also his birthday today.
Well, I did mention that.
Okay, I thought you did.
That's how we got into that, baby.
Right.
Don't you remember?
That was a long time
You need some
ago
more
in a
caffeine.
galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. But so happy birthday. If you're celebrating a birthday today, happy birthday to you. What do you like to do on your birthday?
I'm glad it happened. Usually, my kind. I love eating fried catfish. Wherever I am, I go to an all-you-can-eat catfish buffet.
Oh, catfish!
Crush it. Another good one, Jack Kerouac.
Who's that? I don't know who that is.
The author of On the Road.
Oh,
yeah, he was one of the Beat Generation authors. Jack Kerouac.
Yeah. Anyone else you got there? That's exciting
not
and
really.
fun.
That's
that's
about all of them. As far as on the birthdays, there's always good stuff that happened on the day, though.
Oh yeah,
the Girl Scouts were formed on this day in 1912. The original name, the Girl Guides, not the
Girl Guides.
Yeah, Savannah, Georgia. Juliet Gordon Lowe.
I love that.
And then 1933 was this was the point where Franklin Delano Roosevelt did his first fireside chat.
Yeah. We look at the times of what we're dealing with today with gas prices and what's going on in Iran. He started these fireside chats. He did 30 of them during a period of 1933 when they first started on this date. And his whole idea was and actually a reporter named it the fireside chats. But the whole idea was to talk to the American public in simple terms. And at that time, 90% of American households had a radio in their home. So this was like TV for us. This was like TV viewing. And at that time, that night, on that first fireside chat, he talked about having to close the banks. He was trying to still panic that was going on because of what was happening in the height of the Great Depression. And so people loved him for that. Coca-Cola bottled its first bottle of Coke in 1894. It was a fountain drink until then. And I'm going to tell you more about that when we come back from the break, because Mississippi and Vicksburg have a key role in that bottle of Coke that you drink. You're listening to SuperTalk Mississippi from the Element Wealth Studios. I'm Linda Allen, filling in for Richard Cross this morning. I'm so glad you're with us on this early Thursday, chilly morning in Mississippi.
From theseabrook.com.
Start your day right.
Good morning, America. How are you?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
What's different about us?
And welcome back to Super Talk Mississippi. It's 6:38. I'm Linda Allen, filling in for Richard this morning. Middays with Gerard will be at the Westin in downtown Jackson. He'll be there for the Madison County Business League and Foundation. So good for him for being down there. You can come down and see him. He'll be talking about their annual luncheon and the Praycon Global Investment Group luncheon. He'll be the keynote speaker along with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. So check out That coming up later today on Middays. I was talking about events in history, and I wanted to. This is so fascinating to me. I had no clue. I lived in Chattanooga for a period of time, so Chattanooga always to me was the bottling capital of the world for Coca-Cola. But what I have learned, nay, Tuscadero, it is Mississippi who has an important place in the role of that Coca-Cola coming out of one of those glass bottles. You still can find them in places, and there's nothing like a ice cold Coca-Cola coming out of a bottle, not a can. Not a plastic bottle, an actual glass bottle. And that is due to our Vicksburg native, Joseph Augustus Biedenharn. He was an American businessman, and he had a candy store. And in 1894, he first bottled the soda in a fountain drink, because up until then, and it was in a fountain drink. You had to go to a drugstore. Think about the name, Coca-Cola. Yeah, there was Coke in there. It was considered medicinal properties. Well, he decided that there were so many parts of rural Mississippi that he wanted to get it outside of his candy store in Vicksburg. And so he created a model of bottling this and became a distributor for franchises, and he built his company throughout the state, and then ended up moving his bottling to Monroe, Louisiana, our neighbor next door, continuing to grow his business. This is fascinating to me. His parents came over from Germany, so they were coming to a new world to build a new life. They had 12 children. He was one of 12. And of course, back when you think about that time, 3 of the kids died. 8 sons and 1 daughter did survive. Immigrants with the families following the Revolution of 1848. And so apparently, from what I understand, Joseph had the candy store where he created the bottled Coke, and you could go there and get that, or you can get it in other parts. And then his brother had a shoe store in the same building next door. I hope a Vicksburg resident is listening, because I want to know, maybe you know, Lance, it was turned over, the family, the legacy of the family, they actually turned the building over and donated it to the Vicksburg Foundation for Historic Preservation. Is it still there as a museum?
It's beautiful. I've spent I hunt just north of there, so Vicksburg's kind of home away from home, and I've always watched and loved Vicksburg and watched its rebirth too. And one of the anchors of that community has been the Biedenharn Candy Company's building there for, I think it was 1890 when it was constructed. And I always loved it too, because his father's name was Herman. My grandfather was Herman, so that always kind of rang a bell to me.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Coca-Cola came to him, and by Asa Griggs Candler, he was the founder of Coca-Cola, and said, "Hey man, why don't you supply the area with Coca-Cola?" And by like 1939, they'd pretty much come up with a bottling recipe that allowed it to be shipped way further and be done much better. So, glimpse of history right there. One of the great things about Mississippi.
Yeah, and we of course have Pepsi bottling plants in our state, so we don't want to say anything negative about Pepsi, but Coca-Cola is the powerhouse. When you think about a beverage worldwide, I was in Japan years ago, and I was just amazed by Coca-Cola, the presence of Coca-Cola everywhere.
Brand. Well, and that, I think the family had sold the building years before, had come back, and there was many owners of that building over the years. They repurchased it around 79 or 1980. And then restored it, and now you have the museum there.
And apparently they did a lot for the University of Louisiana. When they moved a lot of their bottling to Monroe, Louisiana, they've done a lot of philanthropy. Apparently, there's a Emmy Lou, she's one of the daughters, an Emmy Lou Biedenharn recital hall that's at the University of Louisiana at Monroe. They give scholarships in West Monroe and have given to a lot of groups. So you salute families like that really make Mississippi proud.
Well, and Washington Street's one of the beautiful gems of architecture in Mississippi. If you haven't seen it or been there to Vicksburg, it's one of those neat places. You also have a lot of antebellum homes there, and the tours. But to me, Washington Street is just one of those, just like wow, and it's so hilly.
Oh yeah,
and it takes a little work to get up and down it, but it's such a cool place. But definitely, I believe the hours of the Coca-Cola Museum are Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and on Sunday, 1:30 p.m. to 4:30. And they're open all year round other than New Year's. So Easter being the one coming up, if you're making a plan or a trip to go over, Easter they will be closed, it looks like. So
that'd
be a nice little outing right there.
I've been to Vicksburg many times and covered stories.
Cool
I've just
town.
never been there.
There's
to
so
the
many
museum.
little hidden things there, especially in the architectural world. But
yeah.
You have other things. The Mississippi River, it's kind of a big deal too, and there's a lot of tribute to that. And if you've never spent much time in that area, it's really unique because it sits there on the bluffs where you overlook this flat land called the Delta, and it's such a beautiful place. And you can only imagine what went on over there during the Civil War and the siege of that. And there's so much history still there and so many markers. And then you got the big cemetery, which receives so many great visitors from all over the country every year.
It's so beautiful this time of the year with things blooming.
Oh, wow.
My stepfather loved,
course, yeah.
he was a military veteran. And so when I first took him there, he wanted to just spend the day there walking and looking at the tombs. And the other thing was when you go there in the heat of summer and you start thinking about the soldiers in the wool suits and what they had to wear. And like you said, the hills they had to climb and the places they had to go. It wasn't an easy venture. And these were young men, very young men at the time.
The history of that area is so unique. Got me spending so much time there over my life around just north of the Yazoo River, but the history of the siege of Vicksburg and how Grant and how they tried to kind of dig channels and all this and how they finally ran the Mississippi River, the gunboats. They were able to get them so close to the Vicksburg side that the cannons could not shoot down at them. Right. So they were able to actually run the gauntlet of the blockade, and then downriver a bit were able to moor up and then, kind of come and siege. So the history of it is, I think we need to teach more of that today, because Mississippi's history, I think it should be mandated, Mississippi history, very young, because there's such a wealth of history and colorful characters, good and bad, and stories, politicians and writers and musicians, athletes that I wish we were better at knowing these things. Like the one you mentioned earlier, I had no idea of from Indianola, and that just makes me feel like an idiot. But you want to know things, and I love knowing about our state.
Well, it's a little bit like Elvis Presley. Everybody considers his home Memphis, right? Because that's where he made music. But he's from Tupelo,
that's right. Been to it many times.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just such a proud history that we have here, and it makes me sad. And I'll be honest, it makes me angry every time I see a monument come down, because we have to learn from our past to prepare for our future. And if we're just eliminating what we say is bad or offensive to people, well, then what are we learning, right? You eliminate that, well, we learn from that, and we learn to be better. We learn to be better human beings to one another. But if you eliminate that...
it trains you to be too sensitive.
Yeah. I know the Truman Doctrine.
Yeah,
that's an interesting point today before we get into sports, because that's created and molded our history in America.
It has. On this day in history, as we were just mentioning, there's always stuff happening. You had FDR with the fireside chats, but on this day in 1947, Truman articulated for the first time the Truman Doctrine, which many people will say, "Okay, that's U.S. aid." Eventually, that's kind of what it became. This was because Turkey and Greece, a great recipe for a fried turkey, but they were being attacked by the communists. Yeah. And the governments of those countries were under siege. And Truman said, hey, man, we can't let this happen. We've got to pour some money into these places and give them some resources. And that was really the embryonic phase there, which became much bigger and used the CIA a lot during that era to do these things. And eventually, because of what we're seeing in Iran now, coming full circle, the CIA finally had some oversight afterwards. And that's kind of where the U.S. aid and the soft monies and those things showed up. But the world we live in today very much formed and molded somewhat by the Truman Doctrine. So
and constrained by it too, as well, right?
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
In 1947, though, you think about that, it's a few years ago.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
A few years ago.
I'm an old timer, but that's a long time ago.
Been going on. And Reagan, that was the thing Reagan was really trying to get around. Before Iran, you didn't really have to worry about all this oversight and getting money to the right places. And so Reagan gets caught trying to do the right thing, but yet not able to do it legally, so to speak. And so that was the Iran-Contra.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
We were doing those things for 40 years before that. Yeah. I mean, without anybody really going, you can't do that stuff.
Was it Fawn Hall? And
I remember that.
Remember Fawn Hall? And was it Colonel North?
We got Colonel North.
Yeah. That whole debacle, because that was all televised, right? That's when we got really into watching all this stuff.
Well, and I have a older cousin of mine was a full bird in the Marine Corps, spent a lot of time in Vietnam, taught at the Annapolis, and I remember talking to him about Colonel North. They knew each other very well, and he said, he took orders. That's what we do. We take orders. Yeah.
And that's what our men and women now, they do what they're told to do, because that's what
we're
trained.
told to do, yes.
Yeah. A couple quick hits on sports, because basketball.
We can get that done real quickly. Ole Miss, big win yesterday. They will play Georgia at 6 o'clock today, and Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. Ole Miss was victorious over the Longhorns, Chris Beard's former team, 76-66. with Malik Dia, 23 points, leading the way. Comradine had 16. Mississippi State lost their game yesterday, so they have been eliminated from the tournament, and we'll see their fate as we move forward. Speculation would suggest that likely they may be done. Auburn beat them 79-61. And we'll see with the Ole Miss ladies and how it goes on the tournament as far as the NCAA for the ladies. And I know we'll have some speculation coming as far as the men's side of it. And big baseball weekend, we'll cover most of that tomorrow. But that catches us up on sports.
All right, not a whole lot, but that's still exciting.
Yeah.
Keep our fingers crossed. Linda and Lance with you on the morning show here. I'm Linda Allen filling in for Richard Cross this morning. More when we come back right here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Traffic Center.
Good morning. Good morning to you there.
Okay, up and at 'em.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Money. To buy your lotto ticket, we have some winners throughout the state that are pretty exciting, but no gigantic big winners. Taking a look at the lotto from Lotto America, something that's, I always dream of winning
that one
the
never
lottery.
Seems to hit either. I mean, we've been covering that Lotto America, it feels like, for a decade, waiting for that thing to pop.
I know. It's just kind of crazy. By the way, this hour with Richard Cross is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business, if you have one, you know it is tough. And if you're struggling with HR or benefits or payroll, you're not alone if you have a business. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you and helps you manage your money. You can call today or go to MWGEemployerservices.com. Let's take a look at some of those winners today. So, no jackpot winner with Lotto America. So that means that coming up on Saturday, when they get ready to draw again, it'll be an estimated $18 million, just over $18 million. If you're no Powerball jackpot winner either, so the estimated jackpot coming up for Saturday is $75 million. Imagine that. If you cash it out, about half of that, $34.6 million. Let's see, Mega Millions. That we do have jackpot winner. A ticket sold in Illinois matched all 5 white balls and the mega ball. They won an estimated $533 million. That'll buy you a lot of catfish there over there, Lance. The Mega Millions jackpot, if they're going to cash it out, it'll be about $244 million. So what happens for tomorrow? The Mega Millions jackpot resets itself to $50 million. And then, of course, it will increase depending on how many tickets are purchased. No winner for Millionaire for Life as well. But we do have some winners that are in and around the Mississippi area. Players from Cleveland and Jackson won $2,500 on tickets from the Double Quick, number 87 in Cleveland, and the Lake Harbor Chevron in Ridgeland. That's your neighborhood, Lance.
It is.
Maybe you should go there and buy a ticket.
I pass all of those. I know where all the winning tickets come from. I've stood behind people in line many times as they buy them and have a conversation with them, and tell them that we read this stuff every day, and if they win, they better call me. I haven't had anybody yet.
Nobody's called you.
I felt like I'm the jinx on them. So
yeah.
I've quit saying anything.
Yeah, or a pariah. They're just worried about you. Can you get this guy out of the lottery line? A Jackson woman won $3,300 on a ticket from the Jet Shell in Byram. In Pearl, a lady there won $5,000 on a ticket from the Quick Mart when she was filling up in Clinton. A Jackson woman won $10,400 on 3 tickets that she bought from the Love's Travel Stop in Flowood. 4 tickets from City Tobacco and Vape in Mendenhall won a woman in Braxton $12,000. A lady in Prairie won $13,422 on tickets from Cigar Charles in West Point. Cigar Charles, what kind of place is that? You know what kind of place that is, we know. So congratulations. And players from Starkville and Ripley each won $2,000 on tickets they bought. One from the Break Time Texaco in Starkville and another from the A-Plus Tobacco Outlet in Ripley. So congratulations to all of our lotto winners. There's always another ticket to buy and another time to win. My husband picks up tickets all the time, and I think they just end up being They just fill drawers. They just sit there. It's just kind of a stack of stuff. Just a stack of stuff. Gas prices still on the rise. The IE countries have come together and they are now releasing a record 400 million barrels of oil. As of yesterday, oil closed a barrel at 91.98 cents, so $91.98 a barrel. One of the problems that we've had is, of course, the Strait of Hormuz. They had 3 cargo ships targeted and hit yesterday, according to British authorities. And that's why we're seeing such a decline, because that's 1/5 of the world's supply of oil, and it's slowing things down. And I think one thing a lot of people don't understand is that when you're talking about oil and barrels, you're talking about oil futures. And so people are really predicting what's going to happen, although we see it at the gas pumps immediately. And that's where sometimes the attorney generals across the country have to watch and make sure that businesses are not doing price gouging for residents, because that is a huge no-no, certainly unfair. And in times like these, especially with the economy the way that it is and many families struggling, it is a time where people, every penny counts, every dollar counts.
Well, and as far as Iran, they're not able to attack direct, so they're using an economic form of warfare, attacking data centers, attacking the oil supplies and pipeline as far as getting it to the people that need it the most. And all of that just creates that risk premium on everything and creates that fear that no one really knows what's coming. But, make no mistake, they're very focused on what they're doing, and that is trying to disrupt the global economic flow. And we're seeing some of that right now.
Yeah, and we're seeing the unemployment rates came out for February, and they're a little misleading. It's like anything. You have to really read deeper into the lines to figure out, what happened and why we're seeing a drop. 4.4% was the unemployment rate in February. 92,000 jobs apparently lost, mostly in the healthcare, leisure, and hospitality sectors. Foreign-born jobs, 600,000. Those who are foreign-born that worked in the United States, 600,000 of those jobs were lost between January and February. You have to wonder, does any of that have to do with ICE? So we'll watch for that too. But what's attributed to it a lot? Healthcare strikes that we had in the U.S., that's attributed for part of the problem of what we've been seeing with the unemployment rates. Also, huge storms that we've had, severe winter weather like we had in the Tupelo area, that costs Americans, all of us, money. You're listening to SuperTalk Mississippi. More coming up after the hour, after Fox News and SuperTalk Mississippi News. A great guest for you coming up next hour. You don't want to miss her.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Wake up! Wake up! Rise and shine!
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross.
Nice early morning surprise.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Mississippi. I'm Linda Allen filling in for Richard this morning. On today's episode with Steve Azar, I'm in a Mississippi Minute. You'll hear from Mississippi author and illustrator Sarah Frances Hardy. You can listen to in a Mississippi Minute, easy for me to say, with Steve Azar. That's coming up today at 1 o'clock right here on Super Talk Mississippi. And keep in mind that you can get just about everything that you want, whether it's sports or it's news, election results, the coverage that we have, the interviews that we do. You can now get just about everything from Talk Mississippi on your favorite podcast app. Mornings with Richard Cross, middays with Gerard, Good Things, Sports Talk, all of the shows that we carry. Just go to Super Talk anywhere to listen to our podcasts. They're all available just for you. A CNN host, anchor, has gotten herself into a little bit of trouble. Abby Phillip, if you know who she is, has had to make an on-air correction. She did it last night for her comment that she made about ISIS-inspired terror attacks in New York City. She made the comments last weekend after offering a mea culpa on social media earlier in the day. She issued a correction in the morning on X. She said she made a mistake in last night's show. She said she wanted to do so on air as well. She told viewers, I incorrectly said that the bombs that were thrown by ISIS-inspired suspects in New York over the weekend, remember that happened right in front of the mayor's house? She said that they were directed at Mayor Mondami. Well, she said they were not. I failed to catch and correct that mistake in real time, and I take full responsibility for that. She said, while we do make mistakes, it is important to acknowledge and correct those errors when they happen. She's very opinionated. I've seen her. She's relatively new on the scene as far as giving her a lot of FaceTime, and she can be polarizing, as many anchors can be. But I do credit her for at least acknowledging the problems. I'm sure her inbox got inundated, Lance, with some comments.
Oh, of course. And I mean, again, we can thank Elon Musk for some Twitter X upgrades there that allowed free speech to kind of foment and be heard again. So thank you, Elon. And with that, we've seen quite a bit of mess out there as well with things just as this. I mean, you got to be held accountable for the things you say. And I don't think that we're doing that as much. And hopefully we'll get back to that. You know, I know you pride yourself on accuracy. I do. That's what we want to get you, the good stuff.
And we make mistakes. We're
going to
human,
make mistakes. Right? And you go, hey, I'm sorry. Y'all catch us so often when, you misstep or say something that's not accurate. We need that all over. Everyone needs a watchdog to keep you on your best, Everybody needs that. Well, and that kind of parlays to Lobstergate.
Lobstergate.
Yeah, that's a new one out there.
That sounds delicious.
Oh, well, the world of lobsters, you thought you knew about them, but Surf and Turf Budget, Pete Hegseth apparently blew a lot of money on the lose it or, use it or lose it kind of setup that you have with budgets. We know how this stuff works. If you don't spend it, you're not getting it.
You ain't going to get it.
So apparently about... I don't know exactly the dollar amount, but I think it was $6.9 million on lobster tails during the single month in late 2025. It's drawn a little bit of criticism for that, apparently.
Did he have a party? I mean, what was he doing with those lobster tails?
It was for the troops.
Oh.
Yeah. But there's a lot of optics surrounding this, given that this administration has been very big on, push for federal efficiency, but yet, the use it or lose it mindset. That's something that I learned about as a kid, with these budgets. If you don't need it, you're going to go spend it because you got to get it next year. So that's a kind of a optic into the budgetary process that I think is something we ought to probably look at in the long run. But yeah, apparently it was ribeye steaks, king crab, and luxury furniture. It was part of a $93.4 billion use it or lose it spending spree in September of 2025. We'll hear more about this as things go forth.
That is so insane.
With the $220 Noam spent on the horse riding in the mountains.
But she looks so pretty.
Oh, she did a good job. Yeah, it was. I remember watching those commercials going, ooh, okay, how's this going to help us with getting illegals out of the country? Are they giving them a horse or something?
The give and spend proponent of that in the government is it's a messed up thing. If you remember all the money that came through during the COVID, COVID, we're now marking the beginning, I don't say celebrating life, but marking the anniversary of COVID, which began yesterday when it was officially declared a pandemic.
Well, and you also had SARS, in 02, which was pretty much the precursor, the trial run for COVID.
But each agency got a lot of extra money. Hospitals got a lot of extra money. People don't realize this, but at one time, and I may misspeak on this, so please don't hold me to the number, but I believe that the number was around, if you admitted a patient into a hospital and claimed it to be COVID, you received an extra $30,000 from the government for that patient. And that's why so many were declared with having COVID, because it was money driven. In the Jackson area, I had heard of through the state capitol, there was money that had to be spent, that was money that was given because of COVID. And one of the people in one of the government departments had a $50,000 luncheon, catered a $50,000 luncheon for employees because they had to blow that money or they lost it. So there's a problem there with that, right?
And it's obviously it's not explicit to one administration.
Correct.
This is things that happen every time, and you go, "Where's this great government efficiency?" Well, that's where it is. The budget process is one of those, and then your bid process also on things such as military, and when you look at the cost plus model, it's very flawed. We spend way too much money on things like this. The stuff we don't need that we got to spend it on, and then over here with the cost plus, where you don't get a lot of, you're not getting efficiency in the in the utility of the money.
Where's the oversight from the Truman Doctrine in this, right?
Right. Yeah.
It is ludicrous, and especially for a state like ours where we have so many that have so little, and to think about a luncheon to blow $50,000 just so that we can blow the money and get rid of it, or use it or lose it. Yeah. And there are a lot of problems with that, and we need to take a look at that. And I think we learned through COVID about a lot of things, and we look at our economy, and you can blame Biden for a lot lot of that, but you can also blame, with COVID, with what happened coming at the end of the first Trump presidency and then going into the Biden presidency, certainly not predicted to have what we had.
Well, and we're going to still deal with that for years to come because of the way that it all went down, where the governments have to write checks to people to stay at the house and write checks to keep businesses open. And remember, government doesn't do anything. I mean, they don't make a product. It's your money. Yeah. It's my money. And so, we each owe, as a taxpayer now, if you go back before COVID and look at what each American taxpayer owed the world, it would have been about $100,000.
Yeah.
Today, each American taxpayer owes the world over $200,000. So I know I can't pay the world back $200,000. So
no,
we're going to have to start cutting and making stuff people want in order to reduce that in the long run.
Well, and now we're dealing with what's happening in Iran. According to reports that have been released now, the first week of the war in Iran cost the United States $11.3 billion. That's according to the Pentagon. It's provided the estimate to Congress in a briefing earlier this week. $11.3 billion. We mentioned earlier about gas. The price of a barrel yesterday when the stock market closed was about $98. Well, now they've released new information. The price of a barrel of crude oil topped $100 earlier today. It spiked near $120 earlier this week, so it has dropped, but it is still high. The UN Refugee Agency says as many as 3.2 million people in Iran have been displaced by the ongoing war. The most have fled from Tehran and other major cities toward the north of the country or rural areas. 3.2 million people. Think about that. Think about our country right now. Think about Mississippi. Think about the population of Mississippi. And all of a sudden, all of us, over 3 million of us don't have homes. We don't have any place to go. Yeah. Not to mention how terrorized you are, how frightened you are.
Put into perspective what you were saying, how many billion, 11, 12 billion already spent?
11.3, first week alone.
Well, and to put this into perspective, and again, not calling out Hegseth or his spending, but 93 billion in 1 month is what was spent in September on Alaskan king crab, ribeye steaks, donuts, ice cream machines, a Steinway & Sons grand piano for an Air Force resident, furniture, fruit basket stands, and $5.3 million on Apple devices. So you spent $93 billion, and we've, for junk, and it's cost $11 to $12 billion for a war. That should tell you right there that the spending is out of control. I don't care who's in charge.
Yeah, it's scary because they've always been on a platform of reducing big government, right? And better spending.
We got midterms are coming, and you got a new war, and not spending as the American people thought that you were going to. That will be remembered in November, as they always say.
Yeah, and I think what's sad about this is that the latest coming out of Iran from the Iranian supreme leader, the son now who is supposedly taken over, the Ayatollah Khamenei, he hasn't made a statement or been seen since being chosen for this position. We heard that he had an injury to his foot. He's had some injuries, apparently.
Well, they've got a roster of
from the
supreme
attacks.
leaders ready to go. If this guy's foot is in the way, they'll have another one.
And the president now is saying, the president of Iran is now suggesting that for the war to end, the world will need to recognize, quote, Iran's legitimate rights, and we must pay reparations and offer guarantees against future attacks. With the Trump presidency, I don't see President Trump relenting, do you?
I don't. I mean,
I don't see that.
He's one of those that likes to draw the line in the sand.
Stay with me because our next guest is going to give us some insight into this. She is an Iranian American. She lives in Mississippi. She works in Mississippi. And she knows all about what the hate is that's happening in America toward our Iranian friends here at home. We're going to talk with her, and she's going to be fascinating. Stick around. You're listening to Super Talk Mississippi. I'm Linda Allen, filling in for Richard Cross here from the Element Wealth Studios.
The Venable Glass Traffic.
Super Talk Mississippi.
Ladies and gentlemen,
here we go. Now back to Mornings with Richard Cross.
Now that's entertainment.
It is 7:21 on this Thursday morning in Mississippi. If you're just waking up, it is chilly outside. Yesterday was so warm and beautiful, kind of humid, felt like summer coming. And this morning, that cold front came through, and it is chilly and it is brisk. Good to have you with us today from the Element Wealth Studios here at SuperTalk, Mississippi. Of course, you can't go anywhere without hearing or seeing what is going on in Iran. If you go to the gas pumps, you're seeing the price increase. We are living this nightmare here in the United States, but nothing compared to some others and some of our Iranian and American Iranian friends. We have a special guest with us this morning. She is a Mississippian. Her family, mother was born in Mississippi. Her father was Iranian. They met many, many years ago, lived in Mississippi, and then during a regime change back in 1979, everything changed. She went to live in Iran, her family's home country, her father's home country, and was there for 11 years. She's here now. She's been in Mississippi for quite some time, her home state, works here. But she sees what's happening in our state, and it's very sad because many of her friends and acquaintances who are Iranian, who look Iranian, who sound Iranian, some are getting death threats. We're going to talk with her about that. We're going to call her Kristen. We don't typically do this, but we are protecting her identity just to make sure that she is safe and hopefully she will not receive this. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me. One of the things that you said to me was that you so far have not received anything personally, but part of that is because you're a Mississippian in many ways, right?
Being born and raised here, I don't have the accent to really identify who I am, where I'm from, where my family's from. So I've had the grace of living almost incognito, but it's also allowed a lot of opportunity of open dialogue. You have people that normally wouldn't talk to somebody from a different country. They talk to me and they're like, hey, where are you really from? And, that gives me that open opportunity to be able to say, hey, I'm half Iranian. I've lived over there. And instead of receiving judgment or anything of that nature, it's always been very welcoming for me. And I feel like I'm almost an ambassador here, and I use that, and I try to be compassionate and try to help educate and help others understand what it's truly like to be Iranian, even though I'm half. So
your father left this country and left Mississippi because back at that time we were seeing a lot more of the hate. We're seeing it now. Tell us about that. What was that like for him from what he's told you?
So it's sad. It's unfortunate. When my parents met, they fell in love, got married. It was, that typical story of sweethearts and they fall in love. And it was right before the regime had changed in 79. And then, all of a sudden everything hit the fan. Their whole lives were turned upside down. There was, attempts of trying to have my dad deported while he was, trying to be educated in the university here, trying to get his PhD. And, on top of that, my mother was receiving a lot of things as well. They had even put to the point of putting poisonous snakes on our door.
Oh my gosh.
So, it was, by no means does this kind of stuff happen now. But I saw all of this of what my dad was put through, and all he wanted was just, having a happy life, being able to support his family, living in the U.S. with all of the opportunities here to live comfortable. But, throughout the years, I saw how much it weighed on him, and he felt more and more excluded. And, he always took extra precautions to try to make sure that, nobody knew we were Iranian, because he was afraid that we were going to receive the repercussions. But, for me, I don't speak with an accent. And it gave me a whole different perspective versus what my dad was put through and what he endured. We ended up moving and later in the 90s, we ended up moving to Iran. And that was my first time really truly being over there. And, as we were talking about earlier, my mom and dad made that executive decision that they wanted us to be able to truly experience what it was like to understand, the Iranian culture. And, what I went over there with no understanding of what it was going to be like. And I was met with a whole different world than what was perceived by, the media, what, you're taught in school and everything. So it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to truly grasp what it's like being in Iran. And, it was an opportunity, but I was there for 11 years.
And you decided to come back.
I did. It was time for me because there's only so much you can do in life and progressing, especially if you don't speak the language thoroughly. So I came back here to be able to go to school to progress my career. But aside from that, it was, living in Tehran, it was very much like living in New York. I mean, there was a big nightlife. There was always things going on, and it's very progressive, and a lot of that is not shown, and it was very interesting.
Watching this war unfold, this whatever you want to call it over there, what is it like for you to watch that? You haven't been able to speak with your mom and dad, who are still in Tehran, since this started.
Yes, that's correct. The last time I spoke with them was the day before the bombings happened, and it is some of the most grueling things a soul can be put through is knowing that your family is in the middle of war and you have no clue what's going on, their safety. So, I've been utilizing AI to be able to try to track and to basically scope out where are affected areas to where I can be able to know that their location is safe if they are there. But I mean, it's not only me, it's every single Iranian that's living in the US or even around the world. They are feeling the same repercussions as I am, as we all are, of sitting on the edge of our seat, not knowing, and just praying.
There's a total blackout there still, correct?
Absolutely.
So how are you finding anything out? Where are you going? What are your sources to be able to even know if the area that they live in has been bombed or if they're safe?
Well, AI.
AI.
I look at it as, during the times whenever things were going down in the 80s, they only had telephones. And I remember us all gathering around a phone call, and, we had only maybe about 2 minutes to talk to my dad's family to make sure they're okay. But, with the progression of technology, then we have things like WhatsApp, we have video calls, we have FaceTime, and it's allowed us to be able to have a lot better access on talking with people abroad. And then now with the progression of AI, it's giving us a full scope of being able to have eyes and ears on the ground, where it's a lot harder to sift through all of the things online to be able to find this information.
We're seeing that 3.2 million Iranians have been displaced.
Yes, that's pretty normal. That is pretty normal. So you're talking about a city that is the size of Switzerland, and you have over 25 million people that are there during the day. When things like this happen, which is not the first time, you deal with protest, you deal with, with a lot of crackdowns, almost very similar to martial law. People tend to all leave the city and they go towards the Caspian Sea. They go to the northern areas where it's almost like being at, on the coast. You've got villas and all of these places. These things are not shown on the news or in media, and the beauty of social media is that people are now being able to see this kind of life in Iran. But yeah, they're all traveling abroad from that area to stay in safe regions.
Knowing your mom and dad, do you believe that they have made a plan to get out of Tehran? So many have escaped. Do you think that they would hunker down and stay, or do you think, knowing your dad, he would say, "Let's get out of here"?
I think that they would leave out of town, most definitely. They're elderly, so
how old are your mom and dad?
They're in their 70s and 80s. They're a little bit slower, and I just trust that they are able to make a way out. And I've given them the list of all the things that they need to make sure they have on hand. I run this all the time with them because they live in a hot spot. And, we don't have to worry about these things living in the U.S. We live comfortably. And it's a luxury that I think a lot of us take for granted. But over there, you have to always be prepared for, you never know what happens tomorrow.
That is insane. When you were in school there, you were 18 years old when you went, so you were out of school at the time.
I was out of school.
So you weren't having to go through bomb drills or things like that at all. Did you work when you were there? What did you do when you were there for the 11 years?
I did a lot of things.
Yeah.
There was a lot of work that I did, but I worked a lot focusing on women's rights, focusing on human rights. Even so much that, I even had been interviewed by Kristen for the things that I was doing, but it was mainly focusing on, what can I do for my community while I'm there? And I do the same thing here. When I come back, I brought that humanitarian side with me, and I'm focused on community service and helping any way that I can.
And you're with an agency we won't mention, but you are with an agency that helps others, and we salute you for doing that.
Thank you.
We are talking with a special guest this morning, born in Mississippi, raised in Mississippi, spent 11 years with her mom and dad in Tehran, in Iran. Her father is Iranian, left Mississippi after 1979 because of the hate that he was getting and felt like his family might not be safe to be here. We're going to talk more with her as we continue this on SuperTalk Mississippi. Just a reminder to you, you can get all the election results from Tuesday and any of the news coverage by going to our...
From the Seabrook.com.
Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
It's time to switch on.
Mornings with Richard Cross. On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Yeah!
What will we find? The war in Iran continuing. It's interesting. Thailand is now demanding an apology from Iran after one of their cargo ships was attacked. The foreign ministry conveyed its strongest protest to the Iranian ambassador in Bangkok. The Thai cargo ship was struck and set ablaze in the Strait of Hormuz. Thailand's requesting a statement of apology from the authorities. The Deputy Permanent Secretary for Foreign Affairs also requested clarification of facts surrounding the incident, according to the ministry's statement. And on another note on this, which is interesting, some commercial ships near or in the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf are declaring themselves as China-linked. Since the Iran war began, the marine traffic data shows as their operators apparently are trying to reduce the risks of being targeted. So they're basically claiming they're Chinese. That tells you something about the Chinese and China involved in this. But when you break it down to bare tax, look at it this way, folks. We're talking about governments. We're not talking about the people. We, the people, are who make up the society, yet the governments decide what's going to move forward, and that's what's happening in Iran. Our special guest this hour is a lady who lives in Mississippi, born in Mississippi. Her father is Iranian, her mother Mississippian, American. They are now back in Tehran, have been there quite some time. She has not been able to speak to them since the war broke out, since the first bombing began, which we know is frightening. We were talking during the break, and I think it's so interesting about what you've said. 9/11 changed the world. It changed us here in America. It changed a lot of people's opinions about Iranians. And yet you say that when that happened, the citizens of Iran were as upset as many of Americans were.
Yes, I remember my next door neighbor came running and knocking on the door, and we opened the door, and he said, "America's under attack right now." And I had no clue what he was talking about. So we run downstairs to their apartment, and, we're watching the TV, and it was after the first plane had hit. And his whole family was gathered. Everybody was glued to their TVs. I saw tears in their eyes. I saw tears in the eyes of people that were walking the street. Everybody was mourning. And after the second plane hit, we knew it was serious. And as every Iranian living throughout the entire country, anytime, I'm talking about in the U.S., anytime you see any type of attack, we're all crossing our fingers. Please don't be Middle Eastern. Please don't be Muslim. Please, because it's what happens by a small individual group of people creates ripple effects in all of our communities. And, as what's going on right now, it's ripple effects in all of our lives, even though we have absolutely nothing to do with any of this. But, living in Iran during that time, it was very, very disheartening because Iranians, the citizens, they absolutely adore Americans. And, as we were talking about what was that like being an American living there, and, it was always warm welcomings, always open doors. Everybody wanted us to be a guest at their house so they could have the Americans that come and visit. And so, I never received any prejudice, any hate. Absolutely nothing. Even to people that were more religious, if you want to use that terminology, they were always so warm and welcoming, and they treated, I'd never received any disrespect for being American. And that's why I was never shy about that either, because I felt also I was also an ambassador within that land of representing an American, representing America as a whole. But it was an interesting experience.
And so not being able to talk to your family or others that are overseas right now, do you believe that sentiment is still there, or they're under attack now? You are now under attack. Your father's homeland is under attack by Americans and Israelis. And do you believe that there's still this sentiment and love for America, or do you believe that now they're changing position?
Oh, I absolutely know there is, without a shadow of a doubt, sentiment of appreciation, a sentiment of gratitude and love towards American citizens especially. I see a lot of hope with people here in the country as well, in the U.S. that are Iranian. They keep telling me, keep your head up, keep your chin up, stay positive. We're staying strong as Iranians. They've been through so much that, this is not going to stop our compassion and hope for a better future.
What kinds of things are you hearing? You kind of have self-proclaimed yourself as the ambassador because people are reaching out to you.
Yes.
You're in a helping agency that you work as a job, but also you are American, Iranian roots. What are you seeing that's disturbing to you, and what are some of the stories that you're getting back?
Well, I'm seeing that there, of course, unfortunately, there's always going to be people that bring and spread messages of hate. And it's simply coming from places of insecurity is the way I look at it. I've had, people in this state that have received death threats in their mailboxes. And, I have these people cry to me on the phone and tell me they don't understand why this is happening. And I tell them, best thing to do is just forgive them. Forgive them for the things that they don't know and they don't understand. It's, when you don't understand something and you come from a very small understanding of the world, the people that are different can be fearful. So, there could be that reaction of hate and go back home to your country, or, things like this. I know it comes from a place of fear. So I don't let that stop me. And I try to always help uplift and give compassionate words and care to those that are receiving it, to say, hey, we've got you. Don't listen to what others are saying. They're not majority. But for the most part, it has been an absolute overwhelming positive response from everyone that I know across the country, telling me how sorry they are, and they're praying for my family. They're praying for all of our families. So, it's a small majority, I think.
What do you suggest to Mississippians who, I was reading a message that just came out, and we are getting some positive messages that are coming in. Someone had written and said to us that, Kristen, we're calling you Kristen, we know that's not your name, but they're basically saying, at least I can speak for my family, fully support the freedom and peace of chasing Iranians and would be more than welcome in our home for dinner anytime. We are praying for her and her family, as well as all of the others. Mississippi, there are big hearts here, and you see it every day in the work that you do. And I think when you look at the hate and you see these things that are happening that are not representative of Mississippians, just like you were talking about what you see in Tehran and what you experienced living there for 11 years, that, that is something where it is a small minority. It's not the majority of people.
That's the word.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. And when I came back to the U.S., I moved from state to state trying to find a place to call home. I went from, Florida all the way to California and everything in between. And I ended up just knowing this is home because I've never met more compassionate people with big hearts than Mississippi. And I'm proud to be a Mississippian. And that's why there's a large group of Iranians that live within Mississippi, because they see that. They see that there's care and compassion. I mean, you can walk down the street past somebody and they ask you how you're doing. Or you're in the grocery store and, you don't get that at other places. And it's very similar to the way it is in Iran. There's the same compassion and care for the person that you're meeting and greeting. You could be passing in the grocery store and you don't know. It's the same type of what's the best word for it? Kindness, generosity. It's pretty matched, I think.
Empathy. I think empathy. I think most of us understand that it is human nature, and governments, and that's what's bad. That's been really very sad about what's happened in Iran. As you mentioned, people have been. You're used to this.
Yes.
You are so used to this. My mother was French and lived through World War II as a young girl in France, a little town outside of Paris. And I asked her one time, she was much older in life, and I said, "How do you survive all these things?" And she said, "I learned very young. We did bomb raids every day at school. We prepared every day. We always knew that something could happen."
Yes.
And when you grow up that way and you're raised that way, it's a sad way to grow up, to not be able to be a child and have fun, but it does prepare you for the worst. And when you live in the parts of the country that you live in, you've got religious zealots like you have. It is frightening for many of us that don't understand that, and we have to be, we have to reach into our soul and realize that the hate that we feel is for those people, not for the population of those that are represented.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure having you today, and I wish that you the best. And as you go out into the world and you help others in Mississippi, I hope you'll spread the word that those that are getting targeted, those that are receiving hate, that most of us don't feel that way. We hate the war. We hate what it's doing to our country. It's divisive. It's expensive. Billions and billions of dollars have been spent on a war that we don't believe in, many of us.
Absolutely.
And yet we know that we also believe in the power of democracy and making people free. And I believe that we will continue to fight for people like you and others to try to give you the freedom that we so much have and many times take for granted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us this morning.
Absolutely.
You're listening to SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm Linda Allen, filling in for Richard Cross today from the Element Wealth Studios. You can now get just about every SuperTalk Mississippi show on your favorite podcast app. Mornings with Richard Cross, middays, they go on and on and on. Just search for SuperTalk anywhere you listen to podcasts. We'll have more when we come back after the break.
From the Venable Glass Traffic
Ready? Mornings with Richard Cross.
People want to hear the truth, man. That's what we're going to do.
Super Talk Mississippi.
Well, I done got old. I can't do the thing I used to do.
Damn, I got old. Is that what he's singing? I hope you're not. That's not a song for me, is it?
That's more for me than anything. I'm just a big Junior Kimbrough fan.
Listen, I'm one of those people. I am proud of my age and my battle scars and my literally scars and everything that goes along with life. I'm proud to be alive and happy and grateful. And you have to wake up every morning with a gracious heart, grateful, hopeful. Our last guest that we talked with, we had a chance to talk with her just in this break, and she was telling us that nothing's going on in Tehran right now. Everybody's hunkered down or gone, and we've heard about 3 million people already displaced. And whatever you feel about what's happening with Israel and Iran and America, whatever you feel politically, you have to go back down to the basics and think about the people there. And she was saying that, so many Iranian Americans or Americans who have family still back in Iran, especially Tehran, she says that, they're retaliating against their family members. If they publicly speak in America or anywhere on social media or anywhere, their parents are targeted. She said people are literally being shot down in the street there from what she's heard because they have spoken up against the regime. So think about that. Turn the cards around and think about if that was happening in our country. Most of us can't even fathom what that would be like. But we as Americans are loud and proud, right? We feel we have the right to speak up. That's one of our amendments, to be able to have free speech. And we take that for granted that countries don't always have that. She said it's basically martial law there. The Israeli military has said that they have struck a nuclear facility in Iran there, destroying the Telehan 2. It's the site of an airstrike that happened earlier this year. Satellite photo is showing raised concerns that Iran was working to restore that facility. That's a big reason why President Trump says we're there. We're also hearing about, besides this airstrike on that base, known as the Popular Mobilization Forces, 14 firefighters in western Iraq were killed there. 36 other fighters were injured in a different area. The biggest loss suffered by the force since the start of the U.S.-Israel war on Iran. And what we're hearing also is we're getting some more information about apparently the regime planning attacks on California. Lance, have you read this at all?
It'd be hard to believe they're not.
That is part of what the messages were coming through. Police agencies were reportedly getting notifications to be on alert. So this possibly was part of the precipitation for why we are overseas over there.
Well, and this is a country, and not the people of the country, but the leadership of that country, who have been the greatest sponsors of state-sponsored terrorism on the planet for, 50 years? So it would be hard to believe that they're not planning something here on the soil of the United States of America. Probably the places where, it's easy to get in, soft targets, folks aren't paying attention, you're running ice out of the way, you don't have your ducks in the row, and you've got a governor maybe that's running around all over the world running for president rather than watching his state. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, and I would think that we would be very naive to believe that there aren't folks here already looking to do harm on our soil.
Yeah, and listening to her talk, she's so eloquent, and she works for a major helping agency in our state, so she reaches out, and she's always dealing with people that are dealing with crisis, and so I think sadly, she's better prepared for it. Living in Tehran, she said when she lived there the 11 years, it was very, although she had to be fully covered. If you were not fully covered, walking the streets as a woman, you would be detained. They would pull you in. So she learned very early on as an 18-year-old girl going there, the rules and the regulations.
Morality police.
I like that. And you're kind of a geo guru. She was talking about how beautiful.
What a beautiful country
it is. All we see we see sand and we see deserts.
Nothing
and we
like
see
the east side, far east as you get over toward Afghanistan and Pakistan. But yeah, that's where a lot of the administration has the aspirations, I would say, to create the bomb, and potentially that's the area over there in the Far East. But the country as a whole, huge country, a lot of people. Tehran is an enormous city, and most of the country is extremely rugged. Snow-capped peaks. You get the four seasons. Beautiful, wonderful folks. Very intelligent. And throughout history, a place where Christians, Muslims, Jews all have really migrated over time and thousands of years, and has been a place that's been a mecca for culture, religion, architecture, and just some really brilliant people that have been hijacked by a regime that is totalitarian and Sharia based.
Yeah, I think all we can do as Mississippians is do what she says. Be the caring, loving people that we are. If you have someone that if you go into a business that's Iranian owned or American Iranian owned, if you have neighbors or friends, church members, reach out to them, because you have no idea what they're dealing with. And to not be able to talk to your mother and father in another country and not knowing that their city is being bombed every day, not knowing whether they're even alive, pretty frightening.
Well, and remember, this administration that's been running the country for as long as it has, since 79, 80, basically lied to the people, took power, and then day one decided, hey, we're going to do it this way instead. So you have a whole population of folks that have been hijacked, promised, and 50 years or so later are still in this mess.
Yeah. We're going to take a look at a different kind of problem in our country coming up in the next hour. We're going to lighten the mood just a little bit, but this is information for everybody. Are you trying to lose weight? Are you on medications to lose weight? Maybe you're just fascinated by it. We've got a guest coming in the next hour who has lived it. Once to almost over 400 pounds. We're going to talk to him about what he knows about obesity and what he can share with you that could change your life. Coming up next, Fox News. What
are we going to do? Rise and shine with information and insight.
Check it out. Check it out.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Woke up this morning with a funny, funny feeling, and that feeling was an unusual feeling.
How are you feeling this morning? Have you had your breakfast yet? Was it a healthy breakfast or was it an American breakfast? Because there is a difference, right? Many of us grew up with that bowl of cereal, basically a bowl of sugar. We had toast with that. We'd have a glass of orange juice. Maybe mom would make eggs and pancakes to go along with it on a Sunday morning. It's no secret. Come on, folks. We all know. Not only does Mississippi struggle with obesity, but we now have been named and listed as the most obese country in the world. Most obese country in the world. As of 2025, approximately 12% of American adults, that's roughly 30 to 40 million people, have been taking a GLP-1. You know, Ozempic, Wegovy, you see the ads all the time. And that usage is rising rapidly, particularly among women, the ages of 50 to 64. Another 14% of Americans are expressing interest in using these medications. The question is, are these medications safe? And we're learning some things that are alarming about them. We've heard about depression. We've heard about muscle loss. But is there a place for them? And our guest this hour is going to be talking about this epidemic. And for those of you that are politicos that think that this should be all about politics today, let me tell you right now, it is about politics, because let me tell you, it is costing us hundreds of billions of dollars every year to treat and take care of obese Americans, diabetes, hypertension, heart problems, heart disease. So this is an important time to listen. Maybe you need to change your lifestyle a little bit, be a little bit healthier. Maybe you know someone who does. And if so, this is the hour for you. This hour, we're talking with Dr. Bryan Lantrip. He is a radiologist, was working as an ER doctor for many, many years. But the big point of his life has been his yo-yoing of weight. Good morning to you, Bryan.
Good morning.
You look fantastic walking in today. You could never tell by looking at you that at one point in your life, you weighed over 400 pounds.
Tapped out at 405, yes.
That man that weighed 400 pounds then and the man today, what is the biggest difference for you?
Well, the biggest difference now is I've been a king of losing weight. I mean, you know, in the interest of being transparent, I had a gastric bypass when I was 38. I weighed 405 then, got down to 235, maintained it for 8 years, started slowly going back up like we all do. Every January I'd start a new program, be it Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig or whatever. Would lose weight, not all of it, gain it back. In other words, that classic yo-yo. Until about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I'd really basically given up.
When you say given up, what do you mean?
Well, you know, when you've had as many, quote, diets as I've gone through. I was 11 when I was on my first diet.
11 years old?
11 years old, yes.
Did your mom put you on the diet?
No. Well, I was very aware that I was overweight as a child. I would ask my mother, and, you know, this was back in the 70s, you know, you just didn't you didn't know a lot about nutrition. We knew about the food triangle, but you just didn't talk about nutrition. And so I reached out to my mother, and we did something. I think it was like one of the 3-day diets that you did. I think I remember.
Remember the grapefruit diets,
or
pineapple diets, the Hollywood diet,
banana diet, the hot dog diet. I mean,
the hot dog diet.
Oh yes, it's nasty. Yeah, but 11 years ago, when I felt like I'd given up, I went to go see one of my med school classmates at Right Way Clinic here in the Metro Jackson area, Jeff Hubasek, and very tearful that day. Very hard to come in. And when people go to these places, the hardest thing they do is walk through the door. But I tell them, now that I practice obesity medicine, I say, you just did the hardest thing. Now it's time to get you started on your weight loss journey. You've done the hardest thing. And from here on out, it's all easy. And that's sort of a misnomer. But at the same time, that stepping forward and saying, I've got a problem, I'm overweight, because we all know it. We don't need people to tell us. But the difference now is that, instead of being just the king of weight loss, I've actually learned how to maintain it. Because there are two phases in weight reduction. There's the weight loss phase, and then there's the maintenance phase. In weight loss, you're trying to look for foods that will help you lose weight. But when you reach maintenance, you're trying to look for foods that don't allow you to gain weight. And there's a lot of overlap between those two foods. And it doesn't mean you can't have celebrations or you can't have these foods. You just can't have it every day. You and I have talked, we have become more of a sedentary nation. We're not as agricultural as we used to be. We're not as industrialized as we used to be. I told you before that if you and I had met 100 years ago, odds are both of us or one of us would work on a farm or in a factory. We'd burn 8,000 calories. We could get away with stuff like that. We can't do that anymore. And so, look what we're doing right now. We're sitting.
We're sitting, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And, they say sitting's the new smoking. Great. I'm a 2-pack day kind of guy. But so that being sedentary, we're needing to alter the way we eat. And I learned that, in fact, from that very first day when I went to go see Dr. Hubasek, I didn't call it a diet, because people think of a diet as something we endure, something you get through.
Short term.
Right. Well, short term, long term, but their definition of long term is not lifetime. And so I changed from that day. I said, no, I've got to find a new way, a new lifestyle, something that's going to allow me to lose the weight, to become healthier, to become happier. And so I never called it a diet. And so I slowly but surely made behavioral changes, because the 4 pillars of successful weight loss, medications to help suppress your appetite. And I'm a big believer in that, because I think there are people that walk on this earth that do have neurotransmitter imbalances. And I'm not talking about depression and anxiety and things like that, but I'm just talking about in terms of the hormones and neurotransmitters that interact with our appetite. There are some people that don't have enough anti-hunger hormone, leptin, or maybe their receptors don't work as well. A study many years ago about The Biggest Loser found out that 15 or 14 of the 16 contestants, when you lose your weight, and they lost weight, as they all did, their leptin levels, their anti-hunger hormones went down. But when they regained the weight, and they found out that their leptin levels didn't come back up. So there are reasons why it's no longer a willpower, a calories in, calories out. There are hormones in play here. And so medications to help suppress your appetite is one. Nutrition is another. Now, there are a lot of ways to, as I say, skin that cat. Everyone talks about low carbohydrates, and that is one of many. But there's the Mediterranean diet, the pescatarian diet. There are several ways of eating that, one size does not fit all. You know that as well as I do. The third thing is physical activity. And, it doesn't mean necessarily joining a gym. I tell patients, park further away from the front door. Take the stairs into the elevator, especially if it's only 1 or 2 flights. I don't take 10 flights. I don't want to die of a heart attack by the time I get to the top. But the last one that I make a big push that I try to press upon people is behavioral changes. It's not something you consciously do all the time. Although I tell patients, put your phone down, turn off your TV. When you're eating, really pay attention to what you're eating. Try to figure out, why is it that I like this food? Is it the taste? Is it the texture? Is it the crunch? Does it put me in a better mood? And if it does, if it's a food that will help you lose weight, by all means, more power to you. Send me the recipe and we'll make a gazillion dollars on a cookbook.
We're one of the only societies in the world that eats in our car.
Oh, that's the truth.
Right? I mean, think about that, and think about mindless eating. We go through a drive-through, we go through a box. One of the things that when I'm like you, I've always yo-yoed, and being in television news, you couldn't afford to be fat. I know fat's a bad word. I'm sorry.
No.
It's not a 4-letter word, but it's a 3-letter word, and it's bad. So
it's bad. I know. My mother told me not to say
I was fluffy. My sister would say we were fluffy.
That's right.
But yeah, I can remember many times driving in a news car through a drive-through. You drive through, you grab something, and it's the worst food for you. Doesn't mean you can't have it. You just can't have it all the time. And when you eat that all the time, and you're eating in a car, you're on a phone, you're eating in a car, you're driving, you're not paying any attention to what you're putting in your body, or the fact that you're tasting what you're eating, right? And I think that's part of why, besides the sedentary aspect, we eat in a car. The French don't eat in the car.
No.
Germans don't eat in their cars.
They do not.
Right? So, it's a lifestyle, behavioral change, right?
Right.
Nothing out of a box is what I used to say to myself. Right. A drive-through box, or a box that, if grandma didn't recognize it.
Right.
Nowadays that's interesting, though, because you say grandma. I'm a grandma. So,
hard to believe.
Things that are, that I would have eaten as a kid are very different than what my grandmother. Nutritional foods are different now, too, though. If you eat a fresh chicken off a farm now, or you get eggs from a chicken in a farm, not the grocery, it tastes different.
It does.
And so I think nutrition has really suffered over the years in our country too, don't you think?
Oh yes, ultra processed foods, fast foods. When back in the 50s, early 60s, when fast food started becoming much more of a commodity, why cook? Let's just go out to eat, or why we're on our way home. Let's get something to eat.
When moms left, when World War II happened and moms went to work, it changed everything, because moms no longer were doing 3 meals a day and cooking at home and watching what we're eating. We're talking about Dr. Bryan Lantrip. He is a radiologist in town. Excuse me, it's the Dayquil working, but he's now an obesity specialist and counsels people that are looking to lose weight. We're going to talk more about the GLP-1s, the drugs that so many in Mississippi are on right now. Are they healthy? And what do we need to watch for in the future? There's some exciting news on the horizon. You're listening to SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm Linda Allen in for Richard Cross this morning. Good to have you with us.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
The news you need.
Every 10, 15 minutes, there's something.
The talk you love.
They really talk about the things that matter.
I'm into all that stuff.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Turn my blue heart to red. Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of loving you.
That's kind of how I feel about McDonald's French fries. I have to be very careful when I drive by, because they're the worst for you. You know why they're crispy, right? They soak them in sugar.
Well, that and they've got
brown sugar.
They've got a new burger out too called the Arch.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Looks it.
Alan's in the Delta listening this morning, and Alan says to us, citizens in the United States have more access to food than most other countries. So to me, where we rank in the world, it doesn't matter. And that is true. We do. When we go to a grocery store here, if you've been to a grocery store in Mexico or Europe or any other country, it is so different than what we have here. We have access to everything. And as we were talking about, so many drive-through opportunities. A systematic review just came out this month of 48 studies looking at GLP-1s, Wegovy, Ozempic, there are others that are there. And what it has found is that 60% of us who go on these medications, once we come off of them, if we haven't made behavioral changes, we put back 60% of that weight within the first year. Think about that. You lose 50 or 60 pounds on a drug. You think, oh my God, I look fantastic. My clothes fit. But if you don't manage that, within a year, 60% of that weight will come back. After 1 year, studies show that those on these medications who haven't made changes, 75% have all of their weight come back to them and more. That is extremely disturbing. It's very expensive. Our special guest this hour is Dr. Bryan Lantrip, an obesity specialist in many ways, not just because of the education that he put himself through to learn more about what he believes are the 4 pillars to success of living a healthy life, but also because he personally has experienced it with surgeries, with medications, with yo-yo dieting, as over 400 pounds at one point. The most frightening, though, Bryan, had to have been the time that you were working on your deck and that you realized you couldn't breathe, and then you end up in the hospital with cognitive heart failure.
Yeah, it was.
You're a doctor.
I know.
You
well,
should know better.
We're the worst patients. What can I say?
I can attest to that, right?
Right. Yes. 3 years ago, I'm admittedly in the best shape of my life, or at least I think I am. But 3 years ago, this May, was on my back deck trying to finish up the skirt. Felt okay that day. Next day was a little bit okay, but after that I started feeling short of breath, and I thought, oh, I have COVID again, because I got COVID back in the middle of the pandemic. I didn't do so well with that. I ended up having to get the monoclonal antibodies. That kind of hurt my feelings, because I like on the outside I think I look okay, but evidently I wasn't. But within about a week, I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, and my heart function was so low. Had it been 5% lower, I would have been put on the cardiac transplant list. And
shock of all shocks.
Really, and it was really. I was talking to a friend just a moment ago. We think we're immortal in our 30s and 40s, and maybe even our early 50s. But when something like this was just beyond your control, and it hits you, it really is hard. And so I was off work, watching binging a lot of TV, and after about a month, I told my wife, I said, okay, my brain's turning to mush. I need to do something. And I'd always wanted, since I'd been going to go see my weight loss doctor, Dr. Hubasek at Right Way, I'd always wanted to get board certified in this area. So I started studying, because I'd never had time when I was working full time. And so I signed up for the boards. And because we were coming just out of the pandemic, there's a hybrid, because there are fellowships now available, 1-year fellowships for people who finish family medicine, pediatrics, or internal medicine mostly. And I was board certified in internal medicine, so I'm not just a pretty face. I can actually run a code in case someone needs it. But point being is that I studied for the boards. I took it that October, and I passed. And I'm very passionate about this. I love helping people with this. GLPs, I personally have taken GLPs. I gained about 35 pounds during the pandemic, could not get it off. It took Dr. Hubasek about 6 months to convince me to take it, because at the time, the only indications were for diabetes. And I said, I'm not going to take this. I'm not diabetic.
Right.
And when I took it, it was like, where have you been all my life? Because you name all the drugs that are out there, I've been on most of them, even some that have been been taken off the shelf. Belviq, one of them. Depression's real with that. But the GLPs made me feel like I did when I had my gastric bypass, because it suppresses your appetite. It really does dial down what's called the food noise, the cravings. Other medications can do that, but if you want to deal with your cravings, like 11 years ago, I was taking Phentermine, which brand name is Adipex. I'm a chocolate freak, love chocolate. I'd eat this board right here if it was covered in chocolate. But for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I had to abstain from it. And after about 2.5, 3 weeks, something happened I thought would never happen. My craving went away. But with the GLPs, it pretty much works the first or second day. I mean, there's no food noise whatsoever. You don't have the cravings. But the underbelly side of it is that sometimes it can suppress your appetite so much that you don't take in enough food. And that's actually, we have overindulgence. That's what we're talking about today.
Starving our bodies is not good.
Starving is not good, no. I mean, your body thinks it's just like you go into hibernation or you go into the winter. It thinks, oh, I'm starving, so it's going to shift your metabolism down and make it even more difficult to lose weight.
One of the things that you mentioned, and I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate here, but you talked about depression. Some of the studies that we're seeing show that yes, it does suppress your appetite, but it can also suppress your libido, your desire to do things, and it can make you pretty flat emotionally. And Ozempic has been known to do that with patients. I've seen that personally firsthand with some people that I know. And so there are negatives to these drugs as well, and you can't stay on the drug forever. But the hormones that you mentioned in the earlier block, how does someone know, and how can they be tested to find out if they do have these hormones that do create these additional problems that maybe I might not have or someone else might not have?
Well, I don't know if there's, I really don't know about, I'm not aware of facilities that would offer on a routine basis checking your hunger hormone level, which is ghrelin, or checking your leptin level. It is something that you can measure. But, and there's a lot of research into these. In fact, when they were in the article discussing the Biggest Loser contestants, they were interviewing a person from Pfizer who at the time was trying to come up with a leptin oral analog. And unfortunately, they were never able to bring it to market because they couldn't get the dose high enough to make it past the acid in your stomach or what happens when you absorb it through your GI tract and it passes through your liver, which is the reason why a lot of the GLPs right now are injectable, because it bypasses that first pass effect that the liver does. The liver acts as
So when you're taking the oral ones that we see advertised, those are going through your liver?
Well,
going through your
yes,
kidneys?
because they're absorbed up through your stomach and your GI tract. Now, Novo Nordisk now has a Wegovy in the oral form, came out January the 5th. And it's really funny because they attached a molecule to it to allow it to withstand the acidity of the stomach and to allow the dose to stay high enough so when you do absorb it. And the acronym for it's called a snack.
A snack.
I think that's very ironic. I'm going to have my snack.
That's kind of ugly. That is kind of ugly. I've got a question for you from one of our listeners. They want to know your thoughts on retatrutide? Retatrutide.
Mm-hmm.
And if it affects the individual differently than GLP-1s.
Well, actually, retatrutide, which is a drug currently, they've actually finished phase 3 clinical trials in December. They're doing all the number crunching, getting ready to see what it does, what the actual percentage losses are, and ready to get it for FDA. It is actually, okay, so when we talk about GLP-1s, all the drugs that we talked about, semaglutide, tirzepatide, retatrutide, they technically are GLP-1s. Semaglutide is just a GLP-1 molecule. That's it. Tirzepatide is a GLP-1, but it has an added molecule, a GIP, or a gastric inhibitory peptide, attached to it. Where these two drugs bind in your small bowel to create the effects that they do create, semaglutide binds part of the receptor, tirzepatide binds the entire receptor. So in the trials that were actually with semaglutide and tirzepatide, and the last two in the SURMOUNT trials actually pegged both of these against each other in both type 2 diabetics and non-diabetics. Tirzepatide caused more weight loss, and it makes sense. It's a bigger molecule. The effect it creates is much stronger. Retatrutide is a GLP, a GIP, and it has another molecule attached to it that affects the way the liver releases sugar into your bloodstream. Again, all these drugs started out as diabetic medications, so sugar metabolism regulation is key.
Johnny in West Point is asking about, he is taking Mounjaro, and he says he's plateaued. And so he's wondering whether or not that he should talk with his primary about upping the dosage or maybe changing the drug. Do people need to change drugs?
Oh, yes. There are different doses, and the key to when you're taking these medications, well, there are actually two questions. Number one, are you having bad side effects from the dose you're currently on? Nausea, belching, heartburn, abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea. But the second question, and actually the more important question, because these are weekly injections, is it controlling your appetite all 7 days? If you take it on Monday and by Friday you're starting to get a little hungry, then it's time to go up to the next dose. Now, your listener who talks about he's maintaining, the questions I ask people when they hit a plateau or they're starting to maintain, number one, get out of your food rut. If you started eating foods in the same sequence that you're eating, start looking online for different recipes.
All right, we're with Dr. Bryan Lantrip talking about obesity. We'll be back right after this.
From theseabrook.com.
Coffee, conversations, and clarity. What a great way to start your Mississippi day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
What can the answer be? Are you, like many, struggling to lose weight? This is a major public health issue. So when you're talking politics, don't ignore obesity in our country. An estimated 70%, listen to this, 70% of adult Americans are considered obese. 1 in 10 considered severely obese. And folks, it's not just us old folks that are having the problems. Now we're passing it along to our children. In fact, the highest number of children with obesity, Black and Hispanic children. The locations of the worst, the Midwest, and yes, folks, you know it. I don't have to even tell you. The South, right? The South. Mississippi, over 40% of our residents are obese. And all you have to do is go to the Atlanta airport and watch people in the Atlanta airport. If you fly somewhere else, you're not going to see the obesity that you see in the Atlanta airport. Why? Well, because I learned when I moved to the South many years ago, whether you go to heaven or hell, you got to go through Atlanta if you live in the South. We're talking to Dr. Bryan Lantrip today. He is an obesity specialist, learning firsthand because he's been through it all himself, and now he is board certified in obesity, and he's teaching others how to live a better life and how to be healthy and live longer. This is an incredible tax problem in our country. An estimated $173 billion it costs us because we're just overweight. And folks, a lot of it is just because we're not even making an effort. Dr. Lantrip, we've been talking about GLP-1s. When you have an obese patient come into your clinic and talk with you and say, please, give me help, what can you do? You do believe in medications. What is it that you prescribe to your patients?
Well, the medication phentermine, which brand name is called Adipex. That's how a lot of people know it. A drug that came out in the late 50s, has a very low adverse side effect. It's in the stimulant category. That's how I lost all my weight, and it's been a workhorse in our section of medicine, and it's still largely prescribed today. But these medications, the GLP-1s, they're great medications. There are other medications. Contrave is an oral medication that takes two medications, combine them together. It's usually for a subset of people, although I was personally on it and I thought it was a great drug, it's usually for a subset of people who derive pleasure from eating, because the pleasure center in your brain is very close to your hunger center. And so you can get cross stimulation. So, it's maybe Epicurean.
So if we love chocolate, like you said,
I do,
or we love our fried catfish,
right, that's right.
Those are things, that's interesting. So they're neighbors in our brain.
They are. They're neighbors. And that drug is very successful. I use that sometimes. A lot of people come in with the GLPs. Again, as I've said to you in the break, they can be cost prohibitive. But I think with future medications, as they come on market, and because these pharmaceutical companies want to maintain their market share.
It's a business. It's
a business.
Being overweight is a big business for these companies.
It really is. And so as new drugs come on, other drugs that are currently on the market, which are still very good drugs, will start to come down. In fact, you had asked me last night about Medicare coverage, and starting July 1st, there's going to be a Medicare bridge gap between July the 1st to the end of December for people who have Part D plans. And then starting January, there'll be a more permanent Part D plan. And for people who want to find that out, you need to kind of look at your Part D plan, look at your formulary changes that are coming online.
I have talked to a lot of women in Mississippi, central Mississippi in particular, and a lot of them are on GLP-1s, and I look at them and think they really don't need to be, right. But it is an obsession. And, we have some of the most beautiful people in the South. The women, they spend time on their hair, they spend time on their money, or their face and their makeup, and they spend money, right? Yeah. Ladies in the South, we want to look good. Are you concerned at all, though, that we're going to become a society that's strictly reliant on medications and not changing our behaviors, not changing our lifestyle? Because it is a lifestyle, right? It's not a diet, right. And it's not 3 days a week. It should be 7 days a week, right?
Right. Well, and again, at the beginning of in the early block, one of the 4 things about weight loss, one of the pillars is cognitive change, behavioral change, and you've got to do the homework. I mean, the drugs can only take you so far, and obesity in the medical community, although not everyone in the medical community doesn't recognize that obesity is actually a chronic, unrelenting, multifactorial disease. It's not something that some people have and some people don't. I mean, hormones come into play there, but I think people need to realize the chronicity of obesity, and that, yes, it does come back. You have high blood pressure. You don't take your medication. Guess what? Your blood pressure goes up. Your diabetes is under control. You quit taking your diabetic medication. It comes back. Obesity is the same way, and most of these diseases I missed are so tied into it. In fact, I think 2 years ago, one of the societies wanted to come out with the word diabesity, because the diabetics or diabetes and obesity are so linked to each other that one goes in hand with the other. But now we're discovering obstructive sleep apnea. You really shouldn't treat that unless you start treating the underlying cause, which is frequently obesity. So there are so many chronic adult illnesses that are so tied to obesity. That's the reason why the healthcare costs. We're bankrupting our system because we can't take care of all these people because everyone has become obese.
people don't think about getting sick. If you're obese and you have to go in for emergency surgery, or you have to have surgery, it makes it more difficult for the surgeon taking care of you, the anesthesiologist trying to control you, and you really don't want to keep that individual under sedation very long, because they're such at high risk for problems. And we don't think about that. We're putting ourselves, like you said, smoking used to be the big health concern, and now sitting and being sedentary. And we do need to be more active. For those that are seeking help that don't have a lot of money, what would be your suggestion to them? They may not be able to afford or have insurance coverage to come to an obesity specialist like you. What would you recommend that they do?
Well, good thing about this is that, with 4 things, in fact, there have been, throughout my lifetime, I've lost a lot of weight, and I never went to go see a doctor. I had what I would call an unsupervised weight loss journey. So you can do it, but again, if having the medications does help, no doubt. But again, then that leaves 3 of the 4 of the pillars, nutrition, physical activity, and behavioral change, realizing that your habits may not be what's best for you now or in the future. And so for people who may not can afford a visit, there are still things that you can do. And most people have a smart device or a computer. They can look online. There are actually apps that use cognitive behavioral therapy, Noom being one of those. They combine the psychology of weight loss with medications. But there are other sites out there that offer this, that, just looking, I see so many people when I walk around looking at their phone, well, how about looking up a little bit of psychology of eating, instead of looking at...
But real source material, because there is so much out there now, especially on social media. Every day there's a new diet, there's a new workout plan, and it is overwhelming. And I think that a lot of people are looking for gimmicks, because, listen, we're a fast food society. We want fast results.
We want the miracle pill.
And you were telling me that when you have a patient that's come in and lost double digits since you've seen them last, that's a concern for you.
Well, it can be, especially if they maintain that. One of the patients I saw, I think it was his 3rd month since he'd been a new patient, and he had posted double digits 3 months in a row. And I said to him, he said, I keep my calorie count below 1,000. Well, that's too low. Again, as I said earlier, you're putting your body into starvation mode. And when you put your body in starvation mode, your body starts to shift down, like it thinks, okay, I won't know where my next meal's coming from. So therefore, my energy expenditure or my metabolism will start to go down. And so therefore, you'll get to a point where even 1,000 calories, you won't lose any weight. You may not gain any weight, but you won't lose any weight. So you have to find a
plateau.
That's
that
plateau. Right.
David from the Texas Armory says that the BMI charts would say most athletes are in shapes that are in folks that are in shape are overweight. So we can't, BMI. We got used to doing a BMI thing. No. It's not accurate. Is it?
And I've said just to you now, and I say it to patients. Arnold Schwarzenegger has a BMI of 35. Does he look fat to you? No, because it doesn't differentiate between fat and muscle. It's a weight and a height calculation. But societies have said, in fact, they were thinking about getting rid of BMI altogether, but they'll couple it with, for example, your waist size. Men, BMIs, but also waist size at 40 or below. Women at a waist size 35 inches or below. So when you pair it with another parameter of fitness, and that's just one of them, then you can get more accurate and more detailed in terms of where you fall in terms of your health.
I think the other thing we talked about is a community of people, or at least a person that is with you on this journey. Because if you do it alone, it can be harder. And studies have shown that we actually do better if we have someone with us to go along.
Studies have shown that if couples do it together, typically people who live in the same household, not only they're more successful, but they tend to lose more weight than people who do it singly. And, you can call it what you want. You can either be my guide or my tattleteller. It doesn't matter as long as it's working. But you need to be supportive of each other. And I will extend that to people outside the household, because it's amazing. I've talked to a lot of patients, and I will tell you, some people will say, well, some of my friends are noticing that I'm starting to lose weight, and they're starting to make comments about it. And, bad thing about it, not just in the South, but in a lot of places, we love through food. Oh, yeah. And so when you go to your mom's house and you don't eat her favorite, what she fixes for you as her favorite meal, she thinks you don't love her anymore. So there is a big dichotomy here of pressure, exactly.
You mentioned couples, and I think it's interesting that you say that if you marry someone or you get together with someone and they're overweight and you're not, they're more likely to influence you and you end up overweight.
Yes, that's what happened. I did that to my wife.
My goodness. We're talking to Dr. Bryan Lantrip today about obesity, a major epidemic and health crisis in our country, costing us tens and hundreds of billions of dollars. When we come back, we're going to talk with someone who also works with Dr. Lantrip on a mission to help people, and together they're going to give you some tips that you can take away today to get your life on a better path. You're listening to SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm Linda Allen today, in for Richard Cross. I hope you're enjoying this topic. I think it's something that we can all benefit from. Stick around. We'll be right back.
From the Venable Glass Traffic Center, I'm...
You're waking up to what matters. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
And talking in your sleep.
Man, look at your... Welcome to the Gun Show.
Oh, listen to Dr. Lantrip talking to our guest that's joining us, Josh Nair. What did you say? Welcome to the Gun Show?
Welcome to the Gun Show. Damn.
Yeah, look at those arms, right? We're talking to Dr. Bryan Lantrip today. He is with the Right Way Clinic. It is in Flowood, Mississippi, if you want to check him out. He knows firsthand what it's like to yo-yo, spiking one time at 405 pounds, losing weight through many different methods, finding out he had cognitive heart failure because of the stress on his heart, and now he's on a mission to help others. Josh Nair is joining us this hour. He is a featured key character in the docuseries called Change or Die. It is on YouTube and Tubi. Josh lived with 5 adults for 4 months in a house in Atlanta, trying to help them lose weight for many different reasons. He's worked with celebrities, singer Teddy Swims, Paul Michael Hauser, the actor. He is credited, and I will credit Butterbean for saying this, the 4-round knockout king, Butterbean, the famous boxer, credits Josh with helping him walk again. Butterbean was overweight, out of shape, banged up, in a wheelchair, and he needed to lose weight to get 2 hip replacements. And Josh helped him do that during that journey. Good morning and welcome to joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. You know, both of you look fantastic, but both of you have been through this journey. Dr. Lantrip, 405 pounds at one time. You were 70 pounds overweight at one time, and you look at you now and people would go, that's just not possible. But we talk about eating habits, and Dr. Lantrip talked about the 5 principles that he has, and you believe in that. You believe that you have a mantra about what's a hobby and what's a lifestyle.
Yeah, this is such an important conversation. I'm so thankful to be a part of it. And I love everything what you've had to say in this hour. And I wish we had more time to hear your thoughts, more of your thoughts. I firmly believe that with what I do in strength training as we grow older, 1 to 3 times a week is a hobby. You're not going to make a difference in your life if you're doing anything. I don't care whether you're riding a bike, whether you're in the gym, and we can talk about what constitutes a good gym workout, or walking, right? We should be working and doing something with our bodies every day of the week. Now, I'm not suggesting getting into the gym and having a personal best workout every day. No.
You have to go to boot camp.
That's not smart, right? But responsible activity for no matter what age group you sit in, and no matter whether you're slightly overweight or you've got some real challenges ahead of you, moving your body in a way that you're bending your knees, you're using your back in a responsible way. These are things that we should just be doing as humans. And to your point earlier, that we've just gotten caught up in our society of just not doing these things.
Dr. Lantrip, you were giving me some numbers that are very frightening about obese parents and children and what we pass along to our kids.
Right. When I was studying for my boards, and I actually dug this up again because I'm always constantly thinking about this because neither one of my parents were obese as children, but in their midlife they became obese, as many people do. But the chances of children, comes from a UCSF Children's Hospital study, chances of children becoming obese with one obese parent, the chance is approximately 50%. With both parents being obese, it's up to 80%. And when you have no obese parents, it's 10%. Mm-hmm. And, children of parents who develop obesity in midlife are 6 times more likely to become obese at the same age, and I did. Overweight adolescents have a 70% chance of becoming obese adults. So,
Joshua,
numbers are
you lived in the Northeast. You worked for NBC for a long period of time. Your job was basically entertaining agency clients.
Eating was my job and feeding other people.
So lucky.
Behavioral changes. I mean, you're a big. You work with people to strength train. You teach people in 600-pound people who are in a bed who can't move, and you get them moving. You're working with a new client right now. He had a terrible car accident 20 years ago, and just the motivation. We talked about community with Dr. Lantrip before you joined us. You really believe that you need someone. Well, you don't have to pay a trainer or a strength training coach like yourself, but
everybody should just look me up. No, I'm joking. So I do believe that it takes a village in some respects, and I put together teams for people, right? And that team can just be another friend, right? But someone who supports this journey to the pillars that you spoke about earlier. I have 3, and they are in no particular order: nutrition, activity, and that activity is exercise in some capacity. I'm a big proponent of calisthenic work, and I teach yoga and Pilates, so that's how I start folks. But the strength training part can gradually be introduced with weights at a certain point. I just believe that we trim down first, and then we get to the other stuff.
And you believe people don't have to have money to go to a gym. You can do everything on the floor.
The world is your gym. To all the gym owners out there, I apologize. But to get started, if you're washing dishes, just bend your knees, right? Yeah. If you're walking, walk with a little more bit of a brisk step. The little things can start slowly.
Josh Nair with the docuseries Change or Die. Check it out. It's on Tubi and YouTube. Butterbean's on it. It's a really cool show. Dr. Bryan Lantrip, thank you. I wish we had hours to talk with you both. But we're going to bring you both back because it is fascinating stuff.
It is. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me sit in for Richard Cross this week. I'm Linda Allen. I hope you go out and have a great day. And you know what? Move, baby. Move. It's good for you. And you know what? It's good for your kids, too. Have a great day.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.